Hi, welcome to this week's edition of Blues Talk. Again, John, Dave, myself. We're going to look back over our last couple of games in the Pro 12 and, of course, look forward to the new super duper Heineken Cup or whatever you have in yourself. So, boys, before we start...
1-1 to the boys in green!
A great 1-1 victory. But anyway, we suffered our third loss in the league against Munster because we didn't get a chance to talk about it last week. And then we came back with a rasping victory against Zebre.
The conquerors of Ulster.
Those mountains of European rugby.
Those Zebre of European rugby.
Yeah, so we started talking about the Munster one. It was a very poor performance, really, but it just got off on the wrong foot. I mean, I think every dog in the country knew that that Carney wasn't going to be starting, and he was still named in the team, and then pulled out at the last minute.
Still named in the team and still, talking rubbish to Sky Sports. I mean, okay, I know coaches like to play silly buggers with selection, and indeed in Ireland we're well used to it with the GAA, where if a team that's named has ever taken the field in the championship in the last 15 years, I'd be very, very surprised. But I mean, that kind of that kind of stuff is all right for teams like Munster, but for a team like Leinster, it's not acceptable. No, but I mean, seriously, I mean, I said it before the show, and I got pilloried for it, but I still hold true. The only way Munster could win that game was if Leinster lost it, and Leinster lost it, because I mean, they were rubbish, but we were extraordinarily rubbish.
Yeah, it was. What do you call it? The tallest dwarf syndrome.
Yeah.
There, all right, but fair play to them. They obviously needed it more than we did. They were, 6 years. It was like when we beat them in Croker in 2009. It was a lot of stuff that drove us on to do it. Most notably, as we call it, Black Sunday, where we lost to them in 2006. And we were sick of them winning everything, and we wanted to assert our dominance. And same for them. They want to assert their dominance again, and it's been 6 years since they've beaten us in Dublin. So, yes, fair, with your objective hat on, fair play to them, and we all need a strong Munster. Unfortunately, they weren't that strong. Well, Irish rugby needs a strong Munster. We can't be giving all our players to Ireland. Somebody else has to step up.
We have to give all our players to other teams as well. No, I agree. I mean, it's nice to see a few crumbs drop from the top table, but no.
Not everybody gets your sense of
humour,
Dave.
The thing is, I mean, yeah, you could say that it's great to see Munster doing well and whatever, but actually, it's not because they won or because we lost or anything. It's not great to see two of the country's foremost teams turn out that wreck.
Yeah.
That was rubbish. I mean, it doesn't matter who won or who lost. The loser was the game of rugby and everybody who watched that match, whether you're from Munster or from Leinster, because we're coming into a World Cup year, right? We're coming in to defend the Six Nations Championship, and we're coming into the first year of the I can't believe it's not the Heineken Cup, and it's very important for Irish sides to do well, to show the Nigels, just basically to stick two fingers up to the Nigels. The Irish sides have to do well.
Yeah.
And for two of the Irish sides to play so badly, now Munster won, Leinster won, doesn't matter. I mean, the match itself, the standard rugby was very, very poor. And for Ulster to have similarly gone out and lost to Zebre, admittedly again with multiple extenuating circumstances the week before, does not put us in a good place.
But it was a real hiding that Munster gave us, in fairness.
Oh yeah, but sure, we were utterly rubbish in every aspect of the game, and
of course, but
they weren't.
But does this?
They tried to throw it away by getting 4 yellow cards, giving away a penalty try,
and we still couldn't
get a losing bonus point. Like, that's the really worrying part. Like, we had so little going for us.
But John, like we
and the worse you believe Munster are, the worse that makes us.
Oh yeah, I would consider that to be one of our worst performances in 10 years.
But we constantly hear about the strength of our reserves and our academy and it's the production line and so on. And even though we were missing the likes of Cian Healy, Zane Kirshner, Sean O'Brien, Rob Carney, Luke Fitzgerald, Richard Strauss, Jack McGrath, etc., maybe just the guys that are coming up aren't as good as we think they are.
I thought you were going to go into something like I Am the Great by a house there, Richard Strauss, Johann Strauss, Walt Disney's Mickey Mouse. No, there is a huge number of players missing.
We didn't start the fire.
Doesn't really make a difference. I mean, we were rubbish. Munster won. They were the better team on the day. As I've said before, that's not saying much, but they were the better team on the day. Now, the question is, why were we rubbish? Now, I've resisted the mock-out camp, been in the mock-out camp, but he's certainly in the he has to get his finger out camp.
Yeah.
Certainly has to.
Absolutely.
Because, I mean, we've got our next game is again. We've got Wasps on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
That is a vital game.
And it's a game.
Vital game.
It's a game you wouldn't have thought twice about
No.
6
But
months
do you
ago.
know this time last year we had lost 2 games and drawn 1 and won 3. Now we've won 3 and lost 3. So won the same amount of games we did last season and just dropped that half a game.
Unfortunately, we don't have Sean O'Brien again like we did against the Ospreys last season to do all that. But anyway,
so we kind of redeemed ourselves a little bit in the 20-3 victory over Zebre. It still didn't see much of the game now, admittedly. On
It's diabolical. It was very, very
a
poor.
bore fest in the first half by the sound of it.
The performance wasn't as bad as the performance against Munster, but it
bored them
wasn't
to
a
death.
huge amount better.
Well, I didn't see much of the game either. Like, were we under resourcing the rooks again? Were we,
we were under resourcing our brains again. I'm quite serious. I mean, players. There's not a single player came off that field can look at the video on Monday morning and say, "Wow, I didn't do anything stupid in that match," because everyone did. From Ian Madigan spinning skip twos into touch, even in the lead up to the try, to Luke McGrath's try, Jack McGrath's decision making is diabolical. There's all sorts of things that went on that game. It wasn't very, very good. Zebre were okay. They were up for it because it's their home game.
Yeah,
and there's also an element of I always say this: you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't against Italian teams.
Yeah, but they're of the standard and they're at the point in their development where they're going to be a spoiling team.
Yeah,
pretty much. They're not going to outflare you. They're not going to go around throwing the ball around and do you that way. So they've got to, you've got to play to your strengths. And they've a lot of big guys. I think we flagged in the run up to the game that their bench consisted of 2 out halves and 3 second rows. So
I think
that'd tell you alone that they were up to something.
Oh, they were. I mean, when you pick Bergamasco blindside, you're looking to cause some trouble. In fairness to Josh van der Fleer, I thought he had a very good game. I thought he did.
I believe he did, yeah.
I thought he did very, very well. I was less impressed with Conan. Made a couple of mistakes off the back of the scrum, and that's his bread and butter. But he did okay. He moved to 6. I mean, he didn't let it affect his general play. But it was just one of those games, and we've seen them maybe a bit too often. We saw them under Czech and we saw them under Schmidt. People forget this. That we saw these games where we went away from home and we were just, it was quite turgid and we just got away with the win and whatever. But the problem is that we're seeing it too often.
I know, but it's just so imprecise when we look at Leinster for the last 2 seasons. It's so imprecise. We don't do things at pace, and when we do, we drop it or we knock it on or we kick balls out in the full, or it's full of mistakes.
That's a buzzword that Matt O'Connor's I seem to notice in the media as well. Inaccurate.
Well, he speaks the truth, but it's his job to fix it, right?
Yeah. The try we'll see it later. McGrath's try was a panoply of cock-ups. When you think about it, when Gopperth makes his break, he goes to pop the ball back on the inside, like we've seen 100 times from Leinster out half over the last couple of years. There's nobody there. He has to take the hit and recycle it again. And luckily enough, we do manage it. And then I said earlier about Jack McGrath kind of almost choking the move kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so those are mistakes. Those are inaccuracies. I mean, they're inaccuracies of process, not just. I mean, the guy didn't drop the ball, but he's still inaccurate. He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing in that position.
Well, I suppose the lesson is that Joe Schmidt wouldn't stand for that kind of. He'd roast them for 2 or 3 of those every week. We don't know what
Matt
O'Connor's style is. We've never been to his training.
Well, one thing that we did notice about the 2 matches, the Munster and the Zebre game, is that he selected a different 10.
Yeah.
He moved Madigan from full back at the enforced position that he played, obviously, when Rob Kearney didn't start at 15. But he moved him into 10 against Zebre, and he scored what looked a fantastic try. I want to have a quick look at that one.
And it was Madigan's first start at 10 this season.
A lovely little shot goal and
I saw
inside outside.
Picked out Bartolami.
You see, that's the thing. Madigan in that situation, 1-on-1, if he spots a player out of position in the line, he's going to go for him, target him, and he's brilliant at that.
But that's it. That's his party trick, you know. But funny thing is, Jimmy Gopperth is also good at that. It seems like, we thought they were going to complement each other in styles. It seems like they've got a lot of the same faults and a lot of the same
The thing is, Brendan Williams is also good at that, and you wouldn't have Brendan Williams in the team.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's all very well and good doing something brilliant and off the cuff like that, but an out half's job is to control the team. You know. Now, I actually think that's you can't acclaim the player for doing that, because that's not his role. What you do is you acclaim the player, his skill and the opportunity and taking the opportunity and things like that. But that's not actually the key role of an out half.
Well, the other thing about it is it's easier to learn to control a game than it is to learn flair.
Yeah.
You know, you can coach most of the other stuff, and okay, it might take a while to get through, but you know, somebody who has no flair, you won't coach flair into them. You won't coach flair into, say, I don't know, let's pick somebody at random.
Me, are you?
No, I was thinking of Owen Farrell, for example, who isn't a big flair player.
The world of Tier 2 rugby is filled with players who have all the flair in the world but no ability to control a match. I mean,
especially
to be an out half
at 10,
at the elite level, that's not good enough.
But Dave, like John just mentioned it there, was Madigan's first start at 10.
Yeah.
So we've now played a quarter of our league programme, and he started one game at out half. How can he learn to manage a game from 10 if he's not playing there?
Well,
and when you look at the Munster match,
he's 26. We're not an adult education
hold on a
centre.
second. But you look back at the Munster match, and the previous incumbent at 10 got through 2 intercepts, one for a try. The second one, Zeba, was called back because it was a previous knock on, but still he threw two.
You see, that's what worries me. The argument we're making is we should pick the guy who's least shite.
Well, that is the argument.
I mean, it is. I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, Madigan started 13 games at out half last season, right? He also was unavailable for a number of games from a combination of player management and he had to play at fullback.
Yeah.
Right? Injury and stuff. So, I mean, it's not like he wasn't given a shot. But the thing is, he was given a shot, but he didn't grasp it. And the same with Goppert. Goppert may have been given more of a shot. He hasn't grasped it either. To be honest with you, I wouldn't have either of them near. Now that Noel Reid is back, I wouldn't have either of them near the team. To be honest with you, if I had my choice.
Well, who are you putting at 10?
Johnny Sexton.
Well, okay. Well, if
you know what I mean?
Out of his contract.
But you know what I mean. I mean, are either of them worthy of a start in a team like Leinster?
Yeah, but like,
that's a bit harsh now.
You can't. It's harsh.
The way they're playing right now, are they?
You can't.
I'm not saying they're the bad players.
I think Madigan's in better form than Gottfried is right now.
I'd agree with you. I think Madigan should start at 10 again on Sunday.
It's a simple thing, right? Matt O'Connor has backed Goppert most, this season, obviously, and some of those, reasons of injury to other players, Madigan has been moved about because of his versatility. But Matt O'Connor has definitely nailed his colours to the mast as preferring Goppert, as maybe he views it as he's the least shit, or he's the, whatever. Suits his game plan the best, whatever way you want to rationalise it. Unfortunately, we're now in a situation, and we've been flagging this all along, we don't know our 10, 12, 13 combination. We just don't know our best one. We've got loads of options, and some of them are good and some of them are not so good, but none of them are jumping out like, oh yes, we definitely have to start Madigan, Reid and Darcy, who started last week, which, to be honest, that might not be a bad shout. There's no good way around it though. Like if you do that, you've got Goppert coming off the bench, and you think, well, maybe that's a good role. Come off the bench and close the game out, or come off the bench. But is he an impact player, Goppert?
No.
Not particularly. Madigan is a better impact player.
I said earlier in the week.
But you want Madigan on the pitch from the beginning, whether you want him on at 12 with Darcy outside him and Goppert inside him, or whether you want him at 10 with, say, Reid, or even Darcy and Mackin, or there's so many options, and we haven't even got.
I want my best 15 players on the pitch, and
of course,
especially someone like Madigan that can play in so many different positions. Now he's not very good at fullback, but
I think that's worked against him as well. I think there's an element as well. I mean, we've seen up in Ulster that the Ulster coach isn't selecting every position on that team. We know that for a fact.
Well,
or we can.
Les Kiss
we don't know it for a fact, but we can be pretty sure.
Les Kiss is a foot in two camps. There,
we can be pretty sure that.
But it's doing an injustice to Jared Payne.
But it is. It's not doing it. It's not
and
doing
Ulster, and possibly even Ireland.
Yeah. that Jared Payne is playing at 13. Now, I mean, it's not. I mean, that's not the no coach. No, Neil Doak wouldn't pick him at 13. No way. I wonder. I know. I don't know, but I wonder, is there an element of Joe Schmidt not being too opposed to Madigan playing 12?
Maybe, but I would say that they're looking at it and saying it's really only the Pro 12. If they want
Possibly.
it, you know, I personally think that they'll say
Two steps down from international.
oh yeah, and we'll take it seriously, and you can pick whatever your best team is and put Payne at 15 for the big Heineken Cup match or in Welford Road next weekend.
We'll see that in Welford Road. On the out half and centre situation though, perhaps if Madigan had a situation like Paddy Jackson had in Ulster where the next player was rubbish and he had a guy to protect him at 9, you know, if Jackson had been with Leinster and Madigan had been with Ulster, would he have kicked on just because he would have had to been picked every week and he would have had to learn? And I believe it's a similar situation in Bath with Mike Ford's young fella. Is that who it is? I haven't seen any Premiership this year.
George Ford,
yeah. So, you know, and he's got Stringer with him, you know, who's another experienced head who, okay, he's doesn't attack the game the way Pienaar doesn't, but he's able to feed him.
The thing is, though, I mean, it's one thing to talk about George Ford and it's one thing to talk about Paddy Jackson. But you know, what age is Paddy Jackson?
Well, he's 2 years younger than
and what age
Madigan.
is George Ford?
5.
You know.
Yeah, I know, but just if he'd have been backed for a run against,
if you were making all these arguments, about Cathal Marsh, I'd understand it. Now, like I've said before, and I'll say it again, I'd start Madigan at 10 on Sunday. That's what I'd do. But the arguments we're making to support him, and indeed the arguments we're making to support Goppers, are the arguments that would be kind of wearing thin about a 21-year-old at a club like Leinster, with the ambitions that Leinster have.
I just think that if you have two guys that are equal and you have one guy from New Zealand and one guy from Ireland, really
develop the Irish player.
That's like it's different if you're bringing in a Brad Thorne or an Asiwa, who are, you know, the next guy down
also
is miles below him.
Madigan's an extra year in his contract. I mean, Goppert is.
You'd have to. There's another side to that as well, of course. That Madigan, if you want to develop Madigan or turn him into a useful resource, you kind of play him at 12 because you know. Next year, Johnny Sexton's home.
Yeah.
So, you know, Madigan's best used to... you have to be kind of brutal for the players' benefit and for the benefit of Leinster and Ireland.
Yeah.
I've a kind of a feeling, though, that playing 10 and 12 is becoming a bit more interchangeable, and that, you know, where it used to be done the other way around, play him at 12 and bring him into 10. I think that experience at 10 will stand them at 12 because there's so much chopping and changing and because there's a lot more similarity between the positions in the way they're played now.
Well, I'd go with him and Reid at 10 and 12. Well, your options for Sunday are. Do you want to talk about that now, or do you want to come?
No, we'll come to that in a minute. I just want to. We just get Luke McGrath's try out of the way.
Nice line out again.
I'm glad he got it out of the way.
The Hooky Byrne has been playing well.
Yes,
he's really looked like a
a
top class player. Not world class yet, like a top class player. He's played very, very well. Now here's the one I was talking about. See, he goes through here. He goes looking on his inside, and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
Now in previous years, somebody would have been steaming up on that inside shoulder.
Yeah.
We go across here, and actually Madigan does really, really well here. Takes an absolute wallop here just to get the pass away.
He dislocated his shoulder there the way he went down.
He does very well there. But then that's the advantage of having Reid in there as a good distributor. But
I love when props get close to the line.
But then I suppose Jack McGrath's probably thinking, what would Cian Healy have done?
Yeah.
But in terms of, you know, the difference between them is what does he have to add to his game to get to the level of Cian Healy, and it's obviously playing the loose. So maybe that's what he was thinking. It was the wrong thought.
What does Phil Orr do?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he gives it to the Springbok fullback outside him. Luke McGrath did well, though. People have been critical.
I was about to say Luke McGrath gets an awful lot of stick.
Yeah. And I'm telling you, it's Stringer syndrome.
That's a real cheeky little scrum halves try there, isn't it?
I'm convinced that the likes of Tony Ward and Jerry Thornley have done significant damage to the future of scrum half. No, seriously, to the future of scrum half play in Ireland, because they have over the last 15 years they put so much emphasis on the pass. The past, the past, the past, the past, the past, the past, the past. What about, doesn't matter, what about the past? What about the past? What about the past? Right? That every scrum half is now judged on his past, no matter how good he is at every other facet of the game. Right? It doesn't matter if he's brilliant at everything else, as long as if he can't pass.
Yes.
And no, not if he can't pass. If he doesn't have an absolute bullet of a missile pass, and it has. And we've got this talk about Luke McGrath, who's come on the last couple of games. Okay, he's made mistakes. Yes, he has, like his kick against Glasgow. But those are mistakes he's made in general play. People are talking about his pass, his pass, his pass, his pass, his pass.
He's also got a very mature head on him, and he's.
I think he's.
You know, he
coming along very nicely.
He reminds me of Madigan in the way that they're both incredible rugby players, both incredibly talented, and have a lot going for them. Maybe, you know, in Madigan's case, it's big game management from 10. In his case, it's his pass. There's just a little flaw at something that is. But see, maybe it's overemphasized, but it is still quite a significant.
It is a significant skill. But I said it to you before about, you know, the world's greatest scrum halves. And how all of them had a pass that was functional at best. It wasn't a wonder pass. I mean, if we're talking about that, I mean, to listen to if you listen to Tony Ward going on about, you know, pass, and then tell him by that standard Christian Savard-Mouton must have been the best scrum half to ever play for Ireland. You know, it's just ridiculous.
But like, if you think of two scrum halves that are kind of the two young.
Sorry, just about McGrath, you were saying about he reminds you of Madigan. He reminds me of Redden. He reminds me of young Owen Redden. His attitude, you can see him beginning to really start to boss the pack around. I mean, I wouldn't be half surprised to see him rooting one of his own forwards up the hole if he wasn't going where he was supposed to go. And that's the thing that I'm really heartened about.
Isn't that the beauty of someone like Redden when he's on song? He's got enough of a pass to keep it. He's got that cadence that I always go on about, where he gets to every ruck through a little wormhole. He's got a break. He's got a reasonable kicking game. Like, he's, you know, at the end of the day, it's kick, run, pass, and that's hyper important as a scrum half. Which of those options you choose, how you mix them up, all of those things, and a really good scrum half can do all of them well. And there's very few scrum halves that can do each one as well as the previous one. So they literally keep the opposition guessing. I mean, look at Peter Stringer in 06 against Biarritz, and the only two reasons he got that try, one was because he never ever broke in his life until that day, and the other one was the winger on that side had probably just
watched every video of him and didn't think he was going to do it.
He wasn't going to break, so why would you cover it?
But I was going to say that if you look at the two young scrum halves in the country, or Irish qualified scrum halves, you got Conor Murray down in Munster and Marmion in Connacht, and both of those guys got an opportunity at a very young age to start in their provincial teams. Yeah. And they kind of made the position their own, possibly because there was no one really there to challenge them. And a bit like Jackson up in Belfast,
same thing.
They've kind of been nurtured along and been given the opportunity to make their mistakes. Of course, there are any kids who are going to make the mistakes. When Luke McGrath comes on the pitch, he's kind of given 10 minutes at the end of the match. Sometimes the match is out of reach. Sometimes it's in the balance, and he doesn't get an opportunity to run the game for himself and from the get go. And I think he's not as progressing as quickly as I'd like to see him.
But I'd like to see him start a game, because the one thing that I think the most important skill for a scrum half isn't his pass, isn't his kicking, it's his decision making.
Yeah, that's it.
His mind is his most important weapon.
To get that moving
I'm
at the
firmly
right speed.
in the French camp of Le Petit Général. That's my attitude to scrum half, and that's what I want to see. And you can only really see that as a game develops. If a guy coming into a match that's already, you can't see how he shaped the scrum half should shape the game around him. So he should, and you can't see that. We haven't had an opportunity to see that, or not really had an opportunity to see that with McGrath. I think he's a very, very good prospect because, like I said, he reminds me of Redden, and Redden has been a superb player. And what I like about him is like you were saying about Redden, his cadence. He seems to have that. He seems to bring that with him. It's not about getting to the base and whipping the ball away really quick. It's about getting to the base really quick every single time and making the decision really quick.
Yeah. Well, anyway, a bit of bad news on the injury front. Marty Moore. He got 3 months with a shoulder operation.
Yeah.
It's getting to the stage where it'll be easier for Matt O'Connor to list out the players who are fit.
There's a whole rake of them.
Yeah. Sadly. There's a massive injury list, and a lot of them are in the was going to say a lot of them are in the pack, but
a lot of them are everywhere.
A lot of them are everywhere really at this stage. You've got McFadden, you've got Luke Fitzgerald, and you've got Dave Kearney, who are making selection very simple this week, because there's literally only, if you leave Ben Teo out as well, there's literally only one player more than we need for 23.
I have a feeling that we'll see Ben Teo on the bench, because I think that we're
not this week maybe.
I think that this week we will, because I think we may actually be that stretched for numbers, because if we think we have 9 players, you can be damn sure we only have 7. Because they never tell us the full story, you know.
Well, if just looking at those players, if we're moving on to that, you've got 2 wingers and 1 on the bench. You need. We have exactly that amount. Like we've got Kirshner. You've got to say Kirshner and Kearney are going to be 14 and 15. Redden's at 9, but it's the bits in between there that you can do. You've literally got. If you add in the number 23, you've got, and remove Teo, you've literally got 1 player more than you need.
Yeah, and I think he only has 2 choices anyway.
So you've got, do you leave out Mackin? Do you leave out Mick McGrath? Do you leave it? You've got a few options, but not many. Looks like you're going to have obviously either Mick McGrath or Fanning, and it's going to be Fanning. Let's face it. And the other one probably on the bench. Then. That you either leave Mackin out and play Madigan, Reid and Darcy, or you play Goppert, Madigan and Darcy, or
well,
there are a few options.
The choices are
none of them are perfect.
The choices are at 10. Does he play Goppert and Madigan?
Yeah.
Or at in the centres, does he go with Reid and Darcy, or Darcy and Mackin? Those are the options. I mean, there's no other realistic options.
Are you going to win the Heineken Cup with that? With either
That's
of
the
those
question. But
three?
you're not going to win the Heineken Cup this month anyway. Thankfully, we'll have other players back.
We don't have to win it on Sunday. We just have to not lose it.
Yeah. We've got to stagger across the line.
Is that team good enough to beat Wasps? Yeah.
And in the pack, we're not going to have Jennings back by the looks of it. We don't know at this stage, but that pack pretty much picks itself without Jennings. There aren't too many options. It's McGrath, Cronin, Ross. Then you've got the 3 second rows in whatever order: Toner, Douglas, and McCarthy. You've got Ruddock at 6, Ryan at 7, and Heaslip at 8. I mean, they are. There's no thinking about it.
Not a whole lot of depth at the moment.
We've got 7 back row forwards in the Heineken Cup squad, and a couple of them are injured, so we're literally we've got no choice. If Jennings is not back, we've literally got 4 players to cover 4 positions. So we're fairly threadbare.
We are indeed.
So a game that would have looked maybe when Wasps were playing their playoff back in May, and when we were playing our semi-final and final in the Rabo, as it was, we would have been looking and going, yippee, we've drawn them. Now it's a very losable game. We're probably just as well we have them at home, because if we had to travel to them first up, I'd be a bit afraid of them.
Yeah, the fixtures do in a way. I mean, it's Sunday matches are a pain in the hole, but in terms of the way the fixtures have fallen, kind of are okay.
Yeah.
Because if we're in the whole of our health, and even with the players we have available, ignoring injuries, right? Even just with the players we have available, if that team plays well, it's good enough to beat Wasps. I don't think there's much. Wasps.
Will it play well enough though?
Well, that's the question.
The big question.
That is the question. That's another issue. I mean,
well, Wasps must be in turmoil because they've just been announced that they're going to move up 90 miles up the road to Coventry. And I know that they moved from London to High Wycombe, but they have been there for 12 years. The people in that area have bought it to buy. I think they get 5,000 or 6,000 as an average crowd, can rise to 9 or 10 on the bigger match days. But those people are saying, well, Jesus, I can't drive up 90 miles up the road to Coventry to watch a game.
I'm torn on this issue. I have two actually I have a number of personalities, but I have two beliefs on this.
Two that are applicable to this situation.
Yeah, the first is that this is a shocking way to treat one of the oldest clubs in England. Wasps, I believe, if it wasn't for drunkenness, would have been a founder member of the RFU. The delegates Wasps club sent to the meeting went to the wrong pub and got drunk instead of carrying on to find the right place. That's actually a true story. So one of the oldest clubs in England, that has always been a London club. Always been a London club.
Or High Wycombe.
But I mean, you could say the High Wycombe thing. You could say, okay, they've been there a long time, but you could say there was an element of temporary about it, because they were only tenants. It wasn't their ground. It's still, well, Rico won't be their ground, but that's a kind of that's a cross between the T and the I. But so this club is ripped away. It's been ripped away from its fans. I mean, it's an 80-mile journey. You're not going to
go down by the. Yeah. It'll be only 70 the next.
The way Dave drives now. I mean,
what did I say?
I think it was 80 or 90. It doesn't matter. But anyway.
I mean, it's been ripped out. It's been ripped out of the thing. The fans aren't going to be able to go see it. It's moving. Not only that, I mean, the way England, they're moving divisions. They're moving out of the Middlesex RFU. They're going to go into the Midlands. They're kind of basically shitting all over Coventry RFC, another one of the oldest clubs in England, one of the most historic clubs in England.
They're into Worcester's territory
into Worcester's territory as well, who are not too happy about it. The other side of that is fuck them. I mean, what were their fans doing when the same guys who are screwing them over now were trying to screw over the rest of Europe?
Well, you sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind.
Yeah, you suck the cock, you don't get too surprised when somebody comes in your mouth. It's as simple as that.
Well, like they were like 1 minute away from going into receivership.
It would have been better for the club if they had.
Like there was a guy from Wasps was on the rugby show last night on BT Sports, and he was saying, well, we couldn't play players. Hugo Southwell was the captain of the club a couple of seasons ago. He was saying, like, players hadn't got paid for 3 weeks.
It should be
like when a club goes to that,
it's the professional club.
Yes,
the club itself, Wasps Rugby Club, is still strong and still in Wales. It's still in in London, and it's still in Sudbury, or I think they moved to Acton So what happened was that the professional club was a failure, and now it's been dug out of a hole. I mean, and the other side of that is, I mean, Wasps. There's a lot of talk that Wasps have bought the Ricoh Arena. Wasps haven't. The guy who owns Wasps has also bought a stadium.
Who made his money in 123.ie?
Made his money in 123.ie. He's an Irishman, Richardson.
Maybe he's a deep
but the thing
agent.
Is, I think Wasps have been used as a stalking horse, because Wasps are not his end game. Coventry City FC are. That's a club that's ripe for a takeover. It's a club that's in a catchment area that could support a Premiership club with the right amount of investment and the right stadium. And I think Wasps have been used as the stalking horse, and I think Wasps will ultimately pay the price for that. And I mean, I made a bit of a crudity about Wasps fans, but yeah, I mean, you gotta go into these things with your eyes open. I mean, they were so gung ho for the European Rugby Champions Jolly Good Boys Cup, right?
Hasn't it just crept up on us totally under the radar? The website is crap. It looks like it's just thrown together. There's no logos. There's
in fairness, it is thrown together because
it is. But like
they're still using all the old style sheets from the ERC sites.
There's two issues.
But like they've no sponsors or very few. Heineken come on board. Okay, I know that they've got the TV deal sorted out now in France. However, like our matches are going to be, half them are on Sky, half them are on BT, which means if you want to watch,
I still wouldn't be too sure about that French TV deal, because the French courts overturned the top 14 TV deal. So the money that has been spent on the European Champions Cup TV deal could be pulled to rebid for the top 14 deal. So I mean, it's everything's in flux. I mean, it's just a shambles.
Did you read the article in the Telegraph today? Like,
the Guardian.
The Guardian. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Bruce Craig. Yeah.
My God, like,
But
who are these people?
Yeah, but that's one of the two things. One of the two things is that these guys made all the deals and then turned around to their minions and said, "Right, we've done the deals, make it happen." And they went, "But
don't like
the other side of it is it was very late.
But
in fairness,
a lot of
wasn't sorted out.
A lot of blame has to be put on the doors of the IRFU, the RFU, the Welsh Rugby Union.
Oh yeah, they should have,
and the IRB for not standing up to these.
Bully boys,
and
they should have pulled their playing licenses. That's what should have happened. I mean, they should have said, the RFU should have said, but you see, the RFU want a nice peaceful. The clubs timed it very well. You see, in fairness to them, they played a very nice game. I mean, the RFU don't want any trouble coming into the Rugby World Cup. Now, when the Rugby World Cup is over and the RFU are filled with cash, things might change.
Yeah, but who
I can't
populates
see
the
things
RFU? You know, it's the same
ever
people from
changing
the
back.
clubs. Like when you go over to,
But it's not. You see,
Well, hold on.
it's still
When
the
you-
57 old farts.
Yeah, but when you go over to a match over in England, and I'm constantly surprised. I was surprised at it 10 years ago when Gloucester played in Dublin, and I'm surprised when I went back to Northampton last year. Anytime you meet them, you meet the English fans. The emphasis that they put on the Premiership is up the top, and European comes a poor second. Whereas we're the flip, you know.
I'm surprised that you're surprised.
Yeah, I think that's just a reflection of national character.
It's not just national character.
I
It's
don't know.
age of the competition. Like their competition is older than
It's
the
about 10 years
Heineken
older.
Cup.
Their competition is about 10 years
Yeah,
older.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's not massively older. I mean,
Like, it's
people
not, you
always
know-
say that. People say, "Oh, the Premiership," but it's only started in 1983. I think that's a reflection of national, not so much national character, but national psyche. I mean, Britain has always been an isolationist island. Historically, going back to the Armada.
But Dave,
that's
if you look
the
at
way it's
football,
been.
like the pinnacle in football is to play in the Champions League. You know, is to get those big European nights. It's what some players move and live in a relatively deprived part of England because they want to play in those big games. Like, and it's and rugby players, the players themselves want to play in these particular fixtures. But my God, the fans just have not bought into it. Like, you know, we go on about the great European matches, but
European competition
it's
though,
not the same in the UK.
Is a lot older and a lot more mature
Yes, it is. Yeah.
that in soccer than it is in
But
in
don't
rugby.
forget, there's been Six Nations matches that people from England and Scotland and Wales have been travelling all around for over 100 years.
Well,
to.
you see, they haven't been travelling all around. They've been travelling around Britain, essentially.
And Ireland.
And Ireland, yeah. But essentially, they've been travelling around Britain. I mean, France have been kicked out of it. It didn't miss a beat. Italy have come in. It hasn't missed a beat. Essentially, it has been the Home Nations Championship. That's what it is. That's what it was. Rugby is still insular because rugby is immature as a professional game. I mean, we went professional in 1995. We'd say, obviously, there was amateurism and all that before. But 1995 is when it started. I mean, that's what? 29 years.
19 years.
95. Yes, it is. It's 19. That's why you're the accountant and I'm not. That's 19 years. I mean, that's not a very long time at all. 19 years. I mean, how long has... I mean, football has been professional since the 1860s.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you've got a huge difference in terms of the maturity of the systems, of the culture of the sport, of the development of the competitions of the sport.
I don't think we're ever going back though, and I don't think that the RFU or any FU are going or the IRB are going to ever put a foot down.
No.
And the reason is simple, and it's pretty obvious. It's money. Look at the Australian Rugby Union, the ARU, are nearly bankrupt. The New Zealand Union are not that.
But the New Zealand Union only manages because of the mystique of the All Black jersey.
Of course.
And that's the only reason that
And
they
they
can
charge a
manage.
huge license fee for to play.
Yeah, but they're
play
still
New Zealand.
like, you know, they have a very small market. They've
Of
population
course.
essentially of Ireland. And
South Africa have money, France have money, England have money. No one else in the world game has any money. So those people, those clubs in those countries are going to be able to dictate. And the unions in any country, none of the unions have huge money. I mean, okay, the RFU have a decent wedge, but you know, most of the rest don't. The South African union probably do. The French, I'm not sure. They obviously have some weight, but nobody else has any money. The guys in the IRFU, okay, they control both the club game and the international game, but
I think
I
think they were caught with their trousers
But
down.
there's another side of that. I
they're
mean, you can
flotsam
say
and
that, but
jetsam
the
in the
clubs
international
don't have
league.
any money either. I mean, Bath for all that are £3 million in the hole
Every year.
every year. I mean, the clubs are
Yeah,
these
but the
clubs
guy who
actually
owns
don't have
them,
any money.
£3 million, he'd spend that on lunch.
Yeah, but what
Dave.
happens if he gets bored? What happens if he has a stroke?
But there's a reason that they have.
Well-
There's a reason why he has a couple of $100 million.
But you see, you have that situation where you got these clubs. If a club is so dependent on a huge personal subvention from a rich guy, being a rich guy's plaything. I mean,
Oh, I know.
there's always bigger playthings.
So we play Wasps. We've played them 4 times, 2 apiece.
Mm-hmm.
I was just looking at the team sheet of when we played them when Drico scored those 2 great tries. That was back in 08. And there's only 6 players on our roster from the match day 22 at the time that are still with the club. And then Owen Redden was playing for Wasps.
Yeah.
He's obviously moved to us. So it's a huge turnover in
obviously
those
impressed.
6 years.
Yeah, massive. But have you looked at how many people are playing for Wasps?
Yeah, very few as well. Like they
Probably less.
Oh, absolutely. Like I mean, again on the BBC, on BT Sports last night, they had Simon Shaw, and he said he came back from the World Cup, and he said didn't recognise a face back in training. You know,
they do have. There's a Wasps were one of those clubs that always had a big turnover of players. I mean, they've kept a few for quite a while, but they also have a huge.
All
turnover
that team
to go
got
with
old.
that.
All that Heineken Cup winning team just all fell off a cliff together.
It was a team that had, as you say, grown old together. We saw Wasps 2 years ago.
The Amlin.
In the Amlin. Looked like an
a year and a half ago, really.
Looked like an attractive side to watch, which is unusual for a Wasp.
You'd remember him now, the winger guy. I can't remember, but there was
Vandel.
During that game.
Vandel.
Which one? Wade or Vandel?
Wade. During that game, like Sky were really pumping him up. Oh, he could be a flyer, a bolter to go on the Lions tour. You know, he played one good half of rugby.
He did go on the Lions tour.
I know he did, but but that's because Sky pumped him up.
Well, in fairness, I mean, he was a lot like Simon Zebo in a way. I mean, he had pure pace. Maybe not a whole lot else, but pure pace can cover a multitude in that position.
Well, when you were busy looking at the people who had left since we played that game against Wasps, I was just looking back to the beginning of the Joe Schmidt era, and I decided that to make a team out of players that have either left or are injured, and you know, there's some kicking backline there. We've got Sexton, Fitzgerald, O'Malley, O'Driscoll, Horgan, Nasewa. Would you like to play that backline on Sunday?
I wish we could.
I'd like to select that backline on Sunday.
That's what I'm saying. And even, you know, you've got guys like Nathan Hines, Brad Thorne, Marty Moore, Cian Healy, Sean O'Brien, Shane Jennings, Geordie Murphy. Like, there's a few forwards that you could just throw into the mix. You know, is the team that lines out on Sunday going to be better than that? I wouldn't like to say. I wouldn't like to say. So, you know, I know we're sick saying this, but we have lost a gandy load of players, and we've a gandy load more that are injured.
Yeah.
So we're never going to be playing like we played in 11 and 12. You know, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter if we were coached by Joe Schmidt, mutated and grown on a far off planet for 200 years to be the best coach in the whole universe. We still wouldn't be able to overcome the shortcomings of missing all of those players. So while 6 months ago we would have been looking at this game saying that's in the bag, we're now looking at it going, this is something we could easily, and if you lose a home game to someone like Wasps,
yeah, if we lose that game, that's the campaign.
It's
unless there's some miraculous turnaround. That's it over. I mean, to all intents and purposes.
So it's do or die, and I'm sure the players realise it's do or die, and I'm sure the coaches realise it's do or die. And hopefully we'll catch Wasps, and when they don't have the confidence to knock us over, because apparently they looked. I didn't see the game, but apparently they looked fairly decent against Bath for most of the game last week, and only got overturned at the end.
It's not unusual though for English teams.
Bath came back at them. They didn't win, but they came back at them.
It's the same record as us. They've they played 6-1-3. So the same.
They've lost all their away matches though, which is nice.
We've often gone into games in European rugby against teams that are looking good in the Premiership, and then we find that looking good in the Premiership isn't all that great. It happened last time we played Wasps.
It's funny though, isn't it? Glasgow
in this position, in this match,
Glasgow
6 years ago, we played a Wasps team that were looking really good in the Premiership.
Yeah.
We're going really, really well. And what was it? 41-8, 41-7.
Yeah, it was
11.
Tonkin, all right.
11.
Yeah.
But I remember Cipriani playing that day, and he was fantastic. Like the pace on him, man, but they didn't give him enough ball.
No.
But then they beat us in Twickenham.
Managed to run down Malcolm O'Kelly.
But they beat us in Twickenham in the return fixture in January.
After a bit of a brain fart from the captain.
From Vickery, yeah. He went for a kick for up the line rather than taking points to put the distance between us, and that bonus point got us into the home quarter against Quins. Well, anyway, like our other Aussie signing has come over. Ben Teo has come over from the NRL.
Net nitrogen show. Ben Cho. Ben Jorrington.
Well, he was spotted strutting his stuff with a very tight jersey in UCD on some of the sports.
He might have
pictures.
had a tight jersey, but after seeing that picture, Jason, I'd say you had very tight pants.
Absolutely. Well, I was very interested to read that, last season after his club was beaten in the semi-final, rather than go out in the lash with the lads, he decided to pay a load of cash, fly to Phoenix, Arizona, and go training with some NFL guys to get even uber fitter.
Yeah,
so you got to admire that attitude in him.
While we're unlikely to see him this week, you'd never know. You might see him the following week. You just wouldn't know.
I have a sneaking suspicion we'll see him on the bench.
I'd say they might play him on the wing just the last 10 minutes, depending on how
I think it might happen because, as I was saying earlier, I mean, if we're told that there's 9 guys fit, you can be damn sure there's only 7 of them. The way things are going this year, and the way we've been, basically lied to in all these fitness reports.
You could send him out against Jersey on Friday night in the A game and see could he still remember how to play rugby union and to make him promise not to kill anyone. And then
it might be an option. They could give him 20 minutes on Friday and then stick him on the bench on Sunday, see how he goes. You never know.
Who knows? I'd be very surprised. But
you got to hope that they've managed to register him, unlike they did with Contepomi all those years ago. Well, anyway, some of the other Heineken Cup matches of note this weekend. Quins play Cast in our group. Cast were hammered by Bordeaux at the weekend.
Cast have fallen apart.
Oh, they're like...
Yeah.
But they're still, in terms of talent, they have a fantastic team. I mean, they really have. I mean, they still got Lamarat. They still got Tales. They still got Cockett.
Well, apparently he wasn't playing on the weekend,
team.
so he's the heartbeat of that team.
He's their Pienaar.
Exactly, he's their Pienaar, and he can kick like Pienaar, goal kick like Pienaar too.
Quins are the same kind of record again as Wasps. Like there's 3.
Quins aren't
3
looking
from 6.
great.
No,
but it's the battle of the tallest dwarf syndrome in our group again.
Our group could end up being a bum fight.
I think there could be 2 teams could come out of our group.
We're so lucky we're not in Munster or Ulster's group.
Yeah.
We really are. Munster's group, I think, to be honest, is the hardest because we've got
3 Heineken Cup semi-finalists
in the one group. Exactly.
And Sale. Sale could take a scalp. You wouldn't be surprised.
They finished higher than Wasps.
I don't think they'll do it this weekend, though.
No. The Munster are away to Sale again. It's a bit like our game against Wasps. It's a game you'd fancy them winning.
I think
if
we're
they
lucky
lose
enough
it, they're screwed.
In that our group, every team in our group is playing. Well, maybe not. Well, Wasps are playing quite well, but the other teams in the group are playing so far below what they're capable of that a team, maybe hopefully ourselves, but a team in that group could use the group as a way of finding its feet to actually mount a serious campaign. Because Quins and Castor are actually good enough to do some damage in the competition. I mean, that Quins is still the same Quins team from 2-3 years ago, won the championship, won the Premiership.
You have to question Cast's attitude. I think Cast have won 4 matches ever away from home in the Heineken Cup.
Oh, sure, Castor.
They're not away from home in 2 weeks' time.
No, they're not. But I'd rather play them now when they're kind of third last in the league.
Oh yeah. And they have other things in their mind.
Exactly,
But the flip side of that is if we beat them at home now, they're not going to be interested against Wasps or whoever they're playing back to backs against.
We can only worry about ourselves.
Well, that's true as well. Yeah.
Well, no, I think one of the best games of the weekend is probably going to be Leicester Ulster. There was
an
absolutely epic game last season where Pienaar scored all the points and.
And he won't be there this week.
He won't be there. Yeah, they're going to be really missing him.
Leicester have a load of guys back as well, like Tuilagi and so on.
I was really impressed with Ulster against Glasgow.
Yeah.
It really was. They surgically took Glasgow kind of a bit apart,
They did. That's another. That Glasgow Bath is another one of those games that. What I was going to say earlier was Glasgow they never seem to transfer their league form. I suppose they haven't had league form long enough maybe to do so. They were thrashed last year in Europe.
Isn't it funny? I think 2 years ago, the year we played Ulster in the final, we had Glasgow and Bath in our group.
That's right.
And we made mince meat of both of them. And now you're kind of saying, well, Jesus, within 2 years, this could be one of the games of the weekend.
Although the away leg in both occasions was a bit tricky.
A bit tricky,
a bit tricky. It wasn't massively so, but so it's going to be interesting to see. I think Glasgow are still at a point in their development where they can't do 2 competitions.
Can anyone?
Teams can make certainly in the group stage.
Apart from Toulon,
but certainly in the group stage, teams can. I don't know if with all the injuries that they do have, I don't know if Glasgow have the depth of squad just yet, because they do have a lot of injuries, to do 2 competitions at this point in their development. They're certainly if they had everyone fit, maybe they'd be capable of it. Not sure that they are.
Did they rest a few of their boys against Ulster last weekend when they were beaten?
They rested as many as Ulster did, really. I mean, there wasn't a huge amount of resting.
That might show that their squad isn't really deep enough.
I mean, they started. I mean, the question is, they started with Finn Russell. I mean, that's the question: is he their first choice out half?
I think they're trying to make him. So
they certainly started with Sean Maitland. Pyrgos started. Well, a number of them started. Ulster were very good though. Ulster really kind of went after them. They went after their weaknesses very, very well.
And they went after them in the pack. They went after them in scrums, mauls, all that tight stuff. And it was only the second half when it opened up that they started scoring a few tries. You know.
And as predicted, Neil Doak is the new coach. With Les Kiss, surprisingly enough, going to ditch the Irish job after the World Cup and go back up as DOR up there.
Interesting.
It's a bit of a mess though, isn't it? Like what do those roles represent? Like, and does it mean that Neil Doak is getting demoted when your man goes back?
I think they do contracts and things. I think it's a Humphreys role, where he's not really on the pitch.
Look at it this way: he won't be there for a year. So, how are they going to manage for a year without him? And if they do manage for a year without
Logan, is it Logan that CEO steps into that?
Why do they need him then?
Ulster have a different structure than the rest of us in that they do use that director of rugby role. I mean, David Humphreys was director of rugby. I mean, nominally, certainly by title, it's the same role that, say, Conor O'Shea has. He's director of rugby at Queen's. Are the responsibilities the same? We don't know.
Or Dick Cockbrath
or Leicester. Richard Cockrell in Leicester. But we don't know if that's the same role. You see,
he's a mate of Matt.
I can't see Richard Cockrell being the guy in the suit sitting down with the lawyers to hammer out the percentages on intellectual rights for players in advertising. I just don't see that happening with Cockrell. For some reason, I don't see that as being part of his role.
That's what Wheeler's job is, I guess.
I'd say so. Whereas I could see David Humphreys at Gloucester doing that because he's a trained solicitor, etc., etc., etc. So, what is Les Kiss to say? I mean, Les Kiss you would think of as being a tracksuit guy and on the pitch guy.
Well, I hope somebody knows what the plan is. But
I hope somebody in Ulster knows, because let's be honest, they haven't shown a great deal of sign of knowing much about coaching up there in the last 3 or 4 years, because it's been a bit of a shambles.
Well, I don't know about that. Like they've been quite a successful, probably the second most successful Irish club in the last 5 years.
Look what's happened. Look what happened to the coach who coached them to the European Cup final.
Well, the shinier, sexier fella from the Southern Hemisphere.
And what happened to him?
He got daggered in the back.
Meanwhile, their director of rugby went
to
Gloucester, and then they brought in the Irish defence coach interim as the coach, that's labyrinth.
My understanding was that when Les Kiss wanted to come here to become a head coach, and I think he actually applied for that job in Ulster, but then he was taken on under Kidney's wing when Kidney took over the coaching job in Ireland. But he had actually applied for the role as the head coach up in Ulster.
You see, well, it's hard to know. You see, because
but they was obviously impressed somebody in the echelons up there.
Ulster Rugby's coaching appointments over the last couple of years have been Byzantine. The complexity, the amount of shenanigans has been just ridiculous. Hopefully, now Neil Doak has been around. He's been around the Ulster squad a long number of years. I remember him down here with the Ulster Ravens doing video as the video guy. Long years ago. So he was the only guy who went to, what World Cup was it, and didn't get a game? Was it 2003? He was the only squad member who didn't get a game.
Was he?
Yeah, I think it was 2003.
Scrum half.
Yeah.
Well, that's very interesting, Dave. Thanks a million, boys, and thanks a million for watching.